It's iris season in Kenya. Now look at these beautiful irises. Look at those heads. If you take a closer look, they look amazing. A few months ago, we had talked about the iris and I'd showed you how to propagate the iris. But then today, I want to talk about a different type of propagation that you can actually do with the iris. So, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alice and I'm the Red Soil Gardener. A few months ago, we had covered the iris plant, beautiful irises, and I'd showed you how to propagate and separate your plant and looking at the rhizome. And also I had mentioned that there was one particular iris that as it went up, as it started to flower, the flower actually fell on the soil and started self-propagating. And that's what I'd like to cover today. It's a totally different method of propagating your irises, but you can actually use the base of the flower. Now here I have my irises. Those are the giant irises, the purple ones or the lilac ones. But these ones are actually, they flower purple and white. Now the other thing about it is that the leaves are much more lighter and more delicate than the giant iris. And what happens is that when it does flower is that the stems, as you see here, they do grow quite tall. Now what happens is that as the flower comes out and the stem continues to grow, they fall to the ground. And so if you look at all these irises, is that they're starting to tip over. All these babies, they're going to end up in the soil. And what happens then is that where the plant comes from, the flower base, it starts rooting. And so that's why they call it the walking iris, because everywhere it lands, it roots and continues, and then wherever that second bloom lands on the soil, it starts rooting as well. So here again, if you look at these, look at all these things, look at them. They're all falling to the ground, and so what I'm going to do is actually try to manage it, the ones which have fallen, is try to stick them in the soil and see if they will root. Now what I'd like to show you is that I use some of these fallen flowers of the iris plant and of the giant iris and decided, why don't I just try to propagate it and see how it works and if it works. So when we were talking about the iris, I was walking around the garden, and as I walked around the garden, I saw all the spent flowers and the seed pods, and all I did is collected it, and then suddenly I put it in water. And after a few months, I just forgot about it. Suddenly I just lifted it up the other day, and look what I got. I got rooting. I got quite a lot of rooting. Now take this is my giant iris, similar to this one. And all I did was actually take the plant as is, and let's remove the flowers, like that. And all I did is just put it in water, just like that. And with the result, if you see it, is I didn't even remove the seed pod, but this is the actual, that is the flower. So this is actually what was on the side, this bit, like that. And I put that bit in water and I got the rooting. In this situation, what I would do to this one now is actually remove the pods. But, and so this is another way of multiplying your giant iris and even your walking iris, the smaller one. So I would do the similar thing. So this is where your flower came from. I would actually just pull it off and submerge this in water. And again, here we are. This is where the flower came from, and I would just pull it off like that. And then I would either submerge that in water, or I would actually put this in soil. So I'm going to propagate this in soil. I'm just going to put it in the soil and leave it there, because that is your beginning of your rhizome. So I'm putting it in the soil, and I'm just going to put it in and just cover it. So again, I would do the same thing here. This is where the stem of where the flower came from, this one. And this is what's fallen on the ground, and there's a bit of dry rooting there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it, just cut it. Just remove the dead leaves. I'll do this with a scissor. Just like that. And I'm going to plant that in here. Just like that. So that's my second iris. The same thing I will do here. Just remove these dead leaves. Again, just going to snip it here a little bit. And for as long as I have this base where the rhizome is starting, I'm going to put this in the soil. There we go. So you can go on and on. Now we know is that with this method, you can either do a soil propagation, or you can do a water propagation using, again, this is the mother stem, and this is where the flowers. And again, I'm going to just separate it, and because it's got the rooting, I'm just going to plant that. And of course, in a well-drained soil. And the thing about irises, they do like full sun, but they can also take partial shade. And then this is the giant iris again. Similar thing is you had it attached to the mother stem, and once you can do water propagation, it's good to go. So I'm going to just plant it here until I can decide what I'm going to do with it. And here's another one of the giant again. Yeah, already you've got lovely rooting happening there. And I'm just going to put it in this dish until I decide what I'm going to do with it. So from a water propagation, I'm giving it a soil propagation while I'm waiting to see what to do with it. And there you are, a different method of propagating irises. And with the walking irises, what I'm going to do is actually, as it falls, the babies fall, is I'm going to try to put them back in the soil so that it just continues hopping along. And you've got multitude of propagated irises happening there. So thank you so much for following us on this channel and this episode. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and press that notification button. And if you do love irises, I mean, you've got so many different methods now of propagating through the rhizome, through water propagation of the flower, of the spent flower, and through soil propagation. So have a lovely day, and just go ahead and plant your irises with confidence.